Hello, my name is Mrs. Engel, and I'm going to be reading La Linea. I'm going to be reading chapters 16, 17, and 18. And again, if you're in my guided group, you always think about this chapter contributes to the plot of the story because who, always Miguel, is told from first person, is doing what and why, what is revealed, and why is that important. All right. Oops, I'm getting kind of, uh-oh, where did my chapters go? They're there. Here we go. Okay. Chapter 16. And I'm pulling up my little sticky notes so I can take notes as I go. I sat with my back against the only column in the portico that already claimed by another migrant. Even that late at night, the humidity was dense. The mildewed wall felt cold and clammy through my shirt. Chips of dirty white paint littered the ground, mingled with scraps of metal, discarded food wrappers, a doll's head. Elena spread out her shawl, curled up, and put her head on my leg. She let out one loud yawn, and within seconds fell into a deep sleep. Next to us was a dented, rusted-out oil drum. The stink of old urine crept around from the other side of the barrel. No wonder no one else had chosen this spot. My right leg had already fallen asleep under the weight of Elena's head. I sighed and tried to stretch out to free my left leg. We couldn't afford to oversleep, anyway. The bus left at 6 in the morning. A feeble street lamp cast a dim light onto the first few feet of the portico. One couple, their arms around each other, whispered quietly. A drunk lay in the far corner. He mumbled nonstop to himself. At least 10 others slept in the shadows cast by the columns. Many of them, again, were men alone. A rat strolled across the portico, taking his time. 3 or 4 others followed, their long, thick tails stuck out behind them. The rats didn't seem afraid of us humans. This was their home. Had I really looked hard enough for a place to sleep? Anywhere would have been better than this. Another rat ran right over Elena's shoe. Maybe the rats were a bad omen. I was dead tired, and I needed to stay awake. There was more than one kind of rat in the world. I touched my money pouch strapped to my waist. I needed every peso to take us home, to pay off Juanito, to perhaps, if I was lucky, start my trip all over. I pulled up my shirt, took off the pouch, and stuffed it behind the barrel. It would be safe until morning. The stink would keep everyone away. The only thing I had to do was stay awake. An hour passed, then another. Elena didn't move. The rats came and went. I counted them. I named them. Juanito, Juanito 1, Juanito 2, Morales, Morales 1, Morales 2. I made up stories about them. In every one, the rats died horribly gory deaths. I slapped my face, pinched my arms really hard. I tried to remember every soccer game I had ever played in order and the scores. They listed the kids in my classes, first alphabetically, then by their height, and then by how many mesos they were. There were dumb ones, and then there were ones that just acted dumb. I lined them up in both ways. I thought again about how angry I was with Elena, how she'd messed everything up. Even that didn't work to keep me awake. My eyes closed again and again. I looked around the portico into the darkness of the shadows. All I could hear was scurrying paws and the soft snoring of someone across the open space. Rats or no rats, I was dead tired. Okay, so again, we always think about who. We think about Miguel. What is the action? Is tired from having to try to stay awake. Okay. We would have to get up soon anyway. For sure I'd wake up at the littlest sound. It wouldn't hurt if I slept for a few minutes, would it? A ferocious kick in my side jolted me awake. I groaned in pain and rolled over to see Elena sitting up straight, her eyes wide with terror. Two figures hovered over me, their faces hidden by the shadow of the column. "Wake up," one growled. I couldn't see them clearly, but I saw the gun pointed at Elena's head. They jerked her roughly to her feet. Before I could stand, another kick landed squarely in my stomach, and I doubled over in pain, grabbing my middle. "What do you want?" I gasped. But I knew what they wanted. These muggers probably came through here every night, taking what they could find. No one answered my question. Instead, they pushed me to the ground again. Rough hands moved quickly up and down my body. The hands pulled Chewy's knife right from my pocket, along with the few pesos not in the pouch. A thief dug throughout my backpack and then threw it aside. The only thing he took was a soccer jersey. He figured the shiny fabric and then put it on. The shirt was now his. He rooted through Elena's string bag, opened the purse full of letters, and dumped them on the ground. He balled up the little cloth purse in disgust and threw it in the darkness. Then he kicked at the letters and the ground, several of them to his heel into the earth. Elena groaned as if she had been kicked herself. "There's nothing here," he said with disdain. He gave me another half-hearted kick in the thigh. Kamala moved into the light. He had acne and a bad case of it. Deep scars and pockmarks covered his whole face. A new set of pimples ran across his nose and cheeks, leaking yellow pus. A scraggly, thin mustache covered his upper lip. He wanted to make him look older. It didn't work. When he was a kid like me, a boy, he had tied up my sister and put a gun to her head. How could I have let this happen? I started to get up again, angry at myself. This time Camilla let me stand. I felt his partner behind me, his bad breath on my neck, so close I could smell the rancid sweat from his armpits. I looked around for help, but the portico was empty. Everyone had either been robbed or scared off. Well, it doesn't matter, he grinned meanly. Then I saw the source of his nickname. A shiny old canine tooth glinted in the light under the street lamp. He ran one finger over Elena's cheek. She looked small, like a child. Her eyelids fluttered rapidly and then shut. Her knees gave way, and then she slept into the ground in a little heap. So Miguel's tired from having to try to stay awake. What is revealed is that he falls asleep, leaving him and Elena, I don't know what you want to call it, vulnerable? Oops. Yeah. Vulnerable to, I don't know, let's call them robbers, if you will. Okay? And we'll see if that's important in any way. A deep, terrible dread washed over through every part of my body. "Wait, please, wait, I have money," I said. The man behind me snorted, but Camilla squinted his eyes in interest. He had seen desperation before. He had gotten money from it, probably lots of money. "Really," I pleaded, "let us go. I'll get it." "There." I nodded my head in the direction of the oil drum. "Look behind the barrel. You'll find it. Take it all. Just leave us alone." Camilla motioned with his gun. His partner searched with one hand and pulled out the money pouch and then the bills. He held them out to see, and he counted them quickly. He raised in surprise. It was more than he expected. He reached for the pouch, shoved it in his pocket. This time, he settled for quick, easy money. Sometimes it's just so easy, it's not even fun. His partner threw me to the ground next to Elena. Their footsteps, their laughter, echoed across the portico. We had been easy marks. I rolled over and threw up. We lost our bus tickets and all of our money. Chewy's knife, Lalo's jersey, both gone. How much worse could things get? All right, so now we're going to move into chapter 17. I'm ready to give up, Elena, I groaned. Ooh, there we go. Vulnerable to robbers, which is important because it makes Miguel feel like giving up. Okay. Okay. Let's see what keeps going through 17 and 18. I groaned, then leaned over and picked up my backpack, now completely empty, and tucked it under my arm. Maybe this trip wasn't meant to be. Elena didn't answer. She pulled herself up to her hands and knees and looked at Mama's letters scattered across the portico. A breeze had caught several of them and sent them out into the gutter. She picked up the one closest to her, blew the dirt off the paper, and looked at the words scrawled across the page. She held the letter open in both palms, like an offering, then let it drift back down to the ground. Her eyes searched around in the dim light. She bent closer and then got down on her hands and the tips of her toes, moving like a crab across the dirt, her face close to the ground, examining every square centimeter as she went. Alina seemed to be looking for a particular letter, one that had special meaning for her, but she ignored each and every one she came across. Finally, she stooped even lower and picked up something off the ground. Gracias a Dios, she murmured, and she stood and walked unsteadily toward me. Her hands was a cloth purse that she had held Mama's letters. Come on, Miguel, let's get out of here. She looked around nervously as if no sign of Camillo. Then there was no sign of anyone. Even the rats had disappeared. Let me help you with these. I picked up one letter close to my shoe, folded it along the well-creased lines, and held it out to Elena in the stow in the bag. The letters seemed important to me now. They were the only things we had left. Forget them, Miguel. Please, let's just go, please. Elena reached down for my hand and held me up. It was already hot out, but her hand was cold and clammy. I rose to my feet. Every part of me hurt. Are you sure, Elena? I asked. The letters. We have to get out of here. Elena cut me off. Elena must have been scared to death by Camillo. What else would make her leave her precious letters? She steered me out of the portico and ran out into the street. Dawn would come soon. The barest hint of light was visible to the east, and the sky had turned a deep blue. We turned the corner and entered the far side of the mercado, cutting behind the row of stalls where we first hid from Morales. A few farmers who came in sold their mangoes and chilies and unloaded their goods from the back of the barrow. They looked at us curiously and then went back to their work. I looked down at my filthy torn clothes. They probably looked like fugitives. The farmer would be better off if they pretended they had never seen us. Aquí, said Elena. She sat down on the ground in the very place where I had taken the money that she had gotten from Juanito. Elena turned the cloth purse inside out and put it up to her mouth. She tore at the silky purple lining with her teeth again and again, trying to find a spot that would give way. A small tear finally appeared at one seam, now soaked with Elena's saliva. She lowered the bag, put one index finger in the tear, and ripped the lining apart. A cascade of bills fell out of the purse into Elena's lap. She gathered them up and put them in my hands. This is the other half of the money Juanito gave me. Big tears rolled down Elena's cheeks. For once, she had a good reason to cry. She had 1,000 good reasons to cry. I sewed it into the lining here just in case. She pulled her knees up to her chin and hid her face. Oh, I looked at the little treasure in my hands. Elena had been tricky. She lied to me about how much money Juanito had given her, but she had taken the precaution of hiding half of it. I'll go back home, Miguel. I'll go back by myself, and you can go on ahead. She dried her tears in the back of one dirty hand. Maybe there's still enough money for you if you're careful. She was solemn. She wasn't whining. She meant it. I looked at my sister hard. Despite everything she had done wrong, she had won my admiration. I even admired her sneakiness. She had done everything without giving herself away. I'd never had a clue about her intentions. Not one of them. Then together we escaped Morales and Camillo by the skin of our teeth. Whatever we did, we had to do it as a brother and a sister. We'd been through too much to separate now. Even if Elena went to San Juanito, I'd go too. If I went north, I would take her with me. Still, there wasn't enough money to pay the coyote for both of us. We needed help. Miguel felt like giving up. Um, we can say, however, in the end, Elena's Elena's sneakiness maybe saved them both and gave Miguel hope to go on, but this time together. Okay? Look, Elena, I think we should call Papa and Mama. They'll be worried. Anyway, if worse comes to worse, we could ask Don Clemente for more money, I said. I didn't tell her that he'd given us all the money we wanted. All we had to do was ask. Elena looked down at her nails. They were chewed down so badly that several were bleeding. She knew she'd been in trouble for following me, but she nodded silently in agreement. So we made our way to the bus station, got a large pile of coins, and stood together next to the payphone. I dialed the California number. Elena pumped in the coins, and the phone rang. It rang and rang and rang. A weary, unfamiliar female voice finally answered. No, Papa and Mama didn't live there anymore. Yes, they had moved. No, she didn't know the new number. Elena looked at each other in surprise. The family had moved too often and unexpectedly. Abuelita, one way or another, would have the new number. But Abuelita had no phone. Try Don Clemente, Elena suggested. Maybe Papa called him with their new number. Don Clemente's private number was the first on the list of important information I had memorized. Do not call unless you must, had been written in his own hand. I nodded and dialed. Hola, who's calling? Demanded a familiar voice. What was Juanito doing with Don Clemente's phone? I wanted to hang up right then. I wanted to tell Juanito that I knew what he was up to when he lent Elena money. I wanted to tell him to go screw himself. Instead, I just said, let me talk to Don Clemente, it's Miguel. A silence followed. Juanito, are you there? Are you there? I asked. I thought I heard him chuckle. What do you want, Miguel? I thought mi tío had given you everything you needed. Just put him on. I need to ask him something. I wouldn't give Juanito the satisfaction of knowing what had happened to me, to us. Well, you have to ask me now. His voice was calm and cold. What do you mean? I asked. But I didn't want to know the answer. Juanito didn't answer. He let the silence hang on the line. Don Clemente's dead, he finally answered. A traffic accident. Somehow his Mercedes went off the road on a mountain. It was tragic. Really a freak sort of thing. He didn't sound like he thought it was a tragedy. So naturally, I'm now in charge of his operation, all the networks, the coyotes, the merchandise, everything. If he wants something, you have to ask me, and I'm replacing his people with mine, those who are loyal to me. I didn't answer. I hung up the phone off the hook quietly. With this conversation, the road back to San Juanito was closed, but this time together. However, it was revealed they couldn't go home because Don Clemente was dead and Juanito took over. Uh-oh, it's not moving over. Oh, there we go. I couldn't let Elena return by herself. She already owed Juanito money, and he might decide that she owed him more than that. We had to go north with no clear plans and no help that we could count on. I took the money and split it right down the middle, half for Elena and half for me. I couldn't pretend I was her boss anymore. We brought food and a rundown hotel room for one night. Elena sat on the edge of the sagging mattress and carefully sewed her money back into the lining of the bag. I could hand mine on my body, where at least there's one good place. But who was I kidding? If someone wanted it, they'd find it, no matter where I stuck it. The only thing I had left from the beginning of my trip was Abuelita's Virgin de Guadalupe medallion. With everything that had happened, I'd forgotten all about it. I took it off and inspected the links in the chain, one by one. A couple of Abuelita's hairs still clung stubbornly to the necklace, as if part of her refused to be separated from the Virgin. Abuelita believed in La Virgin's powers of protection and guidance. I just believed in Abuelita. I checked the clasp and put the medallion back around my neck. It had seemed feather-light before, and now cool and smooth. The metal felt solid and weighty against my chest. All right, so that was, let's see, what did I just read? Let's see. So there we go. That was chapter 16 and 17. I think I'm going to stop it here and read. Let's see if I can read 18, 19, and 20 together, or I just might end up reading 18 and 19. So I will see you for the next reading.